even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Go to mattblattkianj.com for more details. That's mattblattkianj.com.
It's gotta be
Matt Blatt Kia,
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, son of a gun!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Just in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hennig.
Monday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. What a crazy, busy weekend. We got a lot to get to, only an hour to get to it here. 609-403-0973 is the text board. We also take your DMs each night in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, which is free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Phillies salvage the weekend. Sixers get a valuable win yesterday. Is Joel Embiid coming back tomorrow? We'll get to all of that. Plus, Flyers, an important game tonight. We're going to find out a lot about who the Flyers are, as they have lost now 4 games in a row, and they got to win tonight if they're going to keep pace. Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com, will join us in less than 20 minutes because, you know, when Kevin Durso and I talked about the Flyers for the last few weeks, he has consistently said this is a playoff team. But right now, it is looking like they are in danger of not making the playoffs. So we'll ask Durso about his confidence and his theory about why the Flyers have been slipping the last few weeks. We will get to the Phillies. We will get to all of that. But first, we got to get to Joel Embiid. According to Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania, 2 of the best in the business at reporting on the NBA, there is a chance that Joel Embiid doesn't just make his return this week, but makes his return tomorrow night. Now, obviously, the wording of the two is a little different. Joel Embiid, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, his return is imminent. Okay? According to Shams, it's as soon as tomorrow night. So those are little different variations of the same way of thinking. Now, our own Austin Krell is reporting from 97.3 ESPN.com. As of right now, Joel Embiid is out for tomorrow night. But I was texting Austin Krell earlier to clarify. So he said that the Sixers injury report currently has Embiid out. But that could change by 5:30 tomorrow night. The idea being that you have to announce a player's game status a couple of hours before scheduled tip-off. So there is a chance that Joel Embiid is able to make the return in 24 hours. Why? Adrian Wojnarowski earlier today on SportsCenter explained.
When Joel Embiid last left this team for that meniscus procedure, he was on his way to becoming the first player since Wilt Chamberlain to average 35 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. He's been ramping up his conditioning in recent days. The belief is that meniscus, that knee is sound, and he is ready to return and impact this Sixers run in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
That's the second time we've heard the term ramping up in the last 24 hours as well, because that is the verbiage that Nick Nurse used in the post-game presser last night. Nick Nurse used the phrase ramping up. So obviously the organization is making it very clear to everyone that Joel Embiid is not just getting on the floor because he's better. He's getting back on the floor because he's ready to get back on the floor. That's the first part we're going to look at. Second part is he said the knee is sound. That is a huge, huge part of this. They're not putting Embiid out there and risking a re-injury. He is recovered. He is healthy. He is better. I don't think we can underplay that part enough. You're not bringing Joel Embiid back just for the sake of bringing him back. You're bringing Joel Embiid back because you know that Joel Embiid is going to make an impact on this postseason. ESPN NBA analyst Tim Legler this morning on ESPN Television's Get Up explains how Joel Embiid's return changes the landscape of the Eastern Conference playoffs.
This is the biggest X factor ever dropped in the history of the league on the NBA playoff scenario, like this close to the playoffs. He comes back and he looks fully healthy. Now, we are going to have to see about his stamina, minutes restrictions, like all of those things. But you're talking about a completely unstoppable offensive force. And with Joel Embiid, they're going to have a shot against Milwaukee, Cleveland, Orlando, the Knicks, whoever they get. With a healthy Joel Embiid, Philadelphia absolutely has a shot.
Now, again, Legler says a healthy Joel Embiid. Adrian Wojnarowski says the knee is in good condition. He's healthy. So the Sixers are bringing back a healthy Joel Embiid. Now, he's going to have to take a few games to get back up to speed. He is not going to be 100% day one of who he was. As Woj said, Embiid was having a historic season. But now if he's coming back, it changes the entire landscape of the Eastern Conference, because if most people agree that the Celtics are the best team in the Eastern Conference, then if they're the best team in the East, the Celtics, and the Sixers can beat any of the other teams in the Eastern Conference, you could argue they might be the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Jay Williams this morning on 97.3 ESPN with Mike Greenberg said this.
When Joel Embiid last left this team for that meniscus.
Well, that was Woj. That was a bad job by me playing the same audio there. So we'll pull up the Jay Will in just a minute. But the point is that this changes everything. This changes how you look at the Eastern Conference. It changes how you look at everything that has to do with the postseason, because if Joel Embiid's having an historic year and then he returns to a team that is arguably better than it was when he walked away. Remember, they didn't have Buddy Hield. They didn't have Kyle Lowry. They didn't have all those guys, right? So now you're bringing Joel back to a team that is deeper and stronger than it was before. Here is Jay Williams with Mike Greenberg this morning on 97.3 ESPN.
You bring back a guy who's one of the most dominant players we have in the game of basketball today with those ancillary pieces. They are right there. Obviously, there's going to be a minutes restriction. There's some challenges that come along with coming back with 7 games left in the regular season. You know, I think it's something that Nick Nurse and company is going to have to monitor. But how Joel Embiid, if he's fully healthy and can play, have him 35, 30 minutes, they're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. There's no doubt about it.
So how are you guys feeling out there? Joel Embiid, a return is imminent, is the reporting. It's still up in the air whether he plays tomorrow night, but it's looking like there is a chance he could play tomorrow night. Nick Nurse explained that the reason why Joel's on the road trip so he can get more 5-on-5 action in. So they are, as Woj said, and as Nick Nurse both said, Embiid is ramping up for a return, and it looks like he is returning this week, potentially as soon as tomorrow night, according to Shams Charania. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Don't forget the Sixers, they have a very interesting task ahead of them, because you look at the NBA standings and you look at where they stand in those standings. If Joel Embiid comes back and he gives you even 70 to 80% of what he was giving you before the injury, you're talking about a stretch of games that they're going to have a chance to make some hay with, right? Look, the game tomorrow night against OKC, that's one of those games that I'm personally not going to get too high or too low on, because I know OKC is a very good basketball team. So that is not the game that I'm necessarily looking at. But when you're sitting there 2 games behind the Pacers and 1.5 games ahead of the Miami Heat, and remember, the Pacers have played 2 more games than you. So you can catch those two games down the stretch here. At Miami this Thursday, at Memphis on Saturday, and then the back-to-back Sunday against the Spurs. If you can just get Embiid to play Thursday and Saturday, lock down those 2 wins, maybe you chalk up Sunday's game to a back-to-back road loss, right? And let's say that you can get 2 out of 3 in that road trip. Now you're coming home for 3 straight home games next Tuesday, next Friday, and then the following Sunday. If you can walk out of all of those games I just mentioned, 2 out of 3 on the road, 2 out of 3 at home, let's say. Now you are talking about going 4-2 in those 6 games. That might be the key to either getting yourself out of the play-in game or at worst, hosting the home game for the play-in game against the Miami Heat. Because if things stand right now, you go to Miami. Remember, the higher seed in the play-in tournament hosts the play-in tournament game. You want your home game. You are a better home team than road team. In fact, of all of the play-in teams, the Heat, the Sixers, the Bulls, and the Hawks, the Sixers had the best home record. For those who are wondering what are the Pacers' record down the stretch, Pacers got a back-to-back against Brooklyn, not back-to-back in terms of back-to-back, but back-to-back home and away games. Tonight against Brooklyn at home, and then on the road against Brooklyn on Wednesday. They also play the OKC Thunder. They also play the Miami Heat, just like you do. But then they got to go on the road to Toronto, on the road to Cleveland, finish season home against Atlanta. It's not like the Pacers have an easier schedule than you, because the Thunder and the Heat are both potential playoff teams. The Cavs, also a playoff team. If the Sixers, as I mentioned, if they can find a way to win 4 out of those last 6 games, and you turn to the Heat and you say, if they lose, let's say against the Thunder, against the Cavs, you only need them to lose 1 more game. Whether it is Miami, whether it is at Toronto, probably not against Toronto, but maybe against the Atlanta Hawks, final game of the year. Maybe they decide to rest people for whatever reason, right? The Sixers have a chance. And if Joel Embiid is the man to make that chance, that change happen, like Legler and like Jay Will said, this could change the entire Eastern Conference standings. And if somehow you can walk away, let's say with the 6th seed, you have beaten the Cavs twice this year without Joel Embiid. Then you get Joel Embiid for a series against the Cavs in the first round, potentially. Now, I know there's a lot of Sixer fans out there. They look at the Bucks. They say, we want Doc Rivers. Well, why not get the Cavs in the first round, take them out, and then maybe you don't have to deal with worrying about a first-round matchup with Doc Rivers, right? But we'll see. You know, it's one of those deals where ultimately you don't want to deal with the Celtics, right? Before you absolutely have to. But why not also avoid the play-in tournament as well? 609-403-0973 is the text board. George at Summers Point chimes in and says, Josh, if Embiid comes back to anywhere near how he was playing before the injury, how far do you realistically think Sixers can go in the playoffs? That's for George, Summers Point. George, I think they are at worst a second-round team. Joel Embiid playing the way he was before he got injured is the kind of player, as Tim Legler and Jay Williams said, he's an unstoppable force. He is the best player arguably on the court in almost every game. And even a team like Boston, you know, for as great as Boston has been this year, they are not as deep as they were before. The Sixers right now are a deeper basketball team than the Boston Celtics. So you could argue that if the Sixers and the Celtics played each other in a 7-game series, the Sixers could win that game because they got more ammunition to throw at Boston than Boston can throw at you. And remember, The last time the Sixers played the Boston Celtics, no Joel Embiid, right? But you go back to that game and you realize that if Joel Embiid played in that game at Boston, that game probably looks very different. Because remember, the Sixers have played Boston twice in Boston. And the last time they played the Celtics, it was with Embiid. It was a much closer game than the last one. And you could argue the Sixers didn't shoot so poorly in that game. Maybe that game is closer as well. I don't think Boston is invincible at all. And like Legler and Jay Will said, the Sixers can beat any of the teams not named Boston in the postseason. So George Summer's point, the answer to your question is the Sixers can go very deep in the postseason. Speaking of the postseason, will the Flyers be in the postseason? We'll ask our insider Kevin Durso next. As the Flyers have lost 4 straight games, can they break that streak tonight against the Islanders? Find out next on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Monday night.
It's Sixers Thunder tomorrow night. Coverage begins at 7:30
Who's right for three? It's the Horn. It's halftime. It's good. He put it in.
on 97.3 ESPN.
Hi, I'm Kamiko, the founder of Miko's Hot Chicken. When we started our family restaurant, we were also raising a family. But let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Our Chase Ink card was there to reward us on all of our business needs. Now we have a thriving location, and we're hungry for more.
Chase Ink Business Unlimited card. You can earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase, so your business can go from here to possible. Chase for business. Make more with yours. Real business owners compensated for the participation. Cards issued by JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC, subject to credit approval. Terms apply.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Minimum purchase required. Interest accrues from date of purchase, but is waived if paid within promotional period. Go to windowappointmentnow.com for full offer details.
Attention homeowners, do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? Fog between the glass? Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's time to replace. And right now you can get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen. Plus, with our spring savings event, you can buy one window or door and get one 40% off when you buy 4 or more units. Just text OWN to 200-300 for your free consultation on top quality affordable windows or patio doors for no dollars down, no monthly payments, and no interest for a year. That's right, you don't pay a dime for an entire year. Text OWN to 200-300 to buy one window or door and get one 40% off. And right now, save an extra $30 off every unit. Hurry, this incredible offer is only in April. Text OWN to 200-300. Text the word OWN to 200-300. OWN to 200-300.
Hi, I'm Atlantic County Executive Denny Levinson. Cell phones have become an essential part of our everyday lives. We use them for working, taking pictures, checking social media, and so much more. Unfortunately, using these complex devices while driving can lead to deadly consequences on our roadways. According to a 2022 study, at any given time, more than 20% of drivers do not keep their eyes on the road, with cell phones being the biggest distraction. Distracted driving remains the most significant cause of all crashes in New Jersey. April is Distracted Driving Month, and police departments throughout Atlantic County will be participating in the statewide You Drive, You Text, You Pay campaign aimed at preventing distracted driving and increasing safety on our roadways. I urge you to make the life-saving decision to keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel. This is Denny Levinson bringing you a message from the Atlantic County Office of Highway Traffic Safety.
When I started using Lumi acidified body wash, I was instantly in love. Fast forward a few weeks, I went to see my wax lady who I've been seeing for 2 years. She asked me what I had been doing because my skin was all one color. I was shocked at it. I started noticing it under my armpits and beyond. It was a whole body, one color situation. So everything I'm telling you is my personal experience. If you want to be one color all over, get yourself some Lumi acidified body wash. This stuff has been put to the test. It has been clinically proven to help reduce the appearance of hyperpigmentation and even out skin tone.
There's a special offer for listeners. Use code 25 and get 15% off your first purchase with code 25, like the Lumi Starter Pack, Acidified Body Wash, or new Lumi Plus Sweat Control. That's LUME deodorant.com, code 25 for 15% off your first purchase. Love it or return it for free. That's LUME deodorant.com, code 25 to save 15% today.
Hey Flyers fans, it's time to level up your game day ritual with the ultimate power duo, the Philadelphia Flyers and Union Forge Vodka. Picture this, the thrill of the game, roar of the crowd, and in your hand, a glass of ultra smooth, 6 times distilled Union Forge perfection. Union Forge is made right here in Philly, so whether you're cheering at the arena or creating your fan zone at home, make it epic with Union Forge Vodka, the official vodka of the Philadelphia Flyers. Cheer on the Flyers with the best tasting vodka produced right here in Philly. Grab a Union Forge bottle today.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Hear the Flyers action tonight on 97.3 ESPN when you grab that bottle of Union Forge vodka. So what are the Flyers going to do here? Because a few weeks ago, we all thought this was a playoff team, all good. I even referenced them as the best team in Philadelphia playing at the time. And now they seemingly can't win a game. How did we get here? And I'll ask Kevin Durso the question. What is going on with the Flyers? Our insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. At Kevin_Durso on the Twitter X platform. Kevin, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing okay because honestly, I'm frustrated. You know, I'm watching the Flyers on Saturday night, and I made the comment that it looked like they were almost skating in mud. It almost looked like they were sluggish. So how did a team that beat the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins now lose to the Montreal Canadiens and Chicago Blackhawks?
Well, it's the style that they play. I mean, they have to grind out games. They have to kind of grind out wins. And you saw that throughout the 10 games that I referenced so much over the last month. And now they kind of got into a schedule that looks more favorable. When you're in a playoff spot and the Montreal Canadiens are where they are, the Chicago Blackhawks are where they are, there's an element where you get a little worried about how you're going to handle those games because they're not ones that you as easily get up for because they're not playoff teams. And, you know, it's not that I think that the Flyers didn't get up for the Montreal game. I think that kind of was just one of those games that some things didn't go right for you. You had a better push in the third period. You had 2 goals called off by a matter of, you know, a kicking motion and an offside that was by mere inches. So, you know, it's not like you weren't in that game. You end up losing 4-1 in a game that's realistically 2-0 with an empty net. So, you know, you don't lose that game as badly on the scoreboard as it seems, but the level of play wasn't there. And you had just given an awful lot in that game before against the Rangers. The Chicago game, there's no excuses for, though. I mean, that was a night to come out and take 2 points on home ice, and they weren't ready to start. I mean, they just came out flat. Execution was off all night long. They couldn't connect on a pass. And it's kind of evident when I can see that pretty early in the game and it doesn't kind of get corrected after maybe I like it to see it corrected in the first 10 minutes, to be honest, but beyond the first period even. And the thing is beyond the first period, they scored 17 seconds into the second period and then hit a post within the next minute. So it looked like it was going the right way. And then as the period progressed, Chicago made a pushback. They got a couple of power plays, the Flyers did, where, you know, that's kind of been a buzzkill for their effort lately because it just kills all momentum. And then Chicago gets a power play and scores on it, and that really felt like game over right then and there because it was such a big swing. So, you know, this team has to find a way to kind of get back to that grinding style and kind of show it from the drop of the puck. The starts have not been good lately, and that's really where they kind of get themselves in trouble, is that if you don't start on time, you're going to chase the game. And for years when they weren't making the playoffs and when they weren't in a playoff race, we constantly watched as they would fall behind in games and be chasing regularly. And now we're seeing that kind of creep up now at a bad time because of, you know, just against whether it's against lesser opponents, whatever it may be. I mean, they fell behind against the Florida Panthers too at the end of this stretch they just had too. And that is a legit playoff team. So you just don't want to be falling behind like that. Sure, they've had this resilience about them where they come back from deficits a lot, but you don't want to make a habit out of it this time of year because you've already spent so much energy to be where you are that the more you have to spend to come back constantly, it's just going to get in the way. You're going to be one mistake away from everything going off the rails, and that's the real issue.
How concerned should we be with Sam Ersson? Is this just a rough stretch for him, or is he hitting a rookie wall? Like, what do you read into this? Because you know how people are. Oh, Flyers got Fedotov. Just put him on the ice. Like people think that the answer to everything is the goaltender. But is it really all Sam Ersson, or is it the defense in front of him?
It's the whole team, to be honest. The last few games, it's been team-wide play. I mean, these aren't soft goals that Arison's letting up. I mean, he may still let in a soft one every now and then, but it's not like every goal that's been allowed has been a soft goal. Something to remember with Sam Arison is that, at this point in the season, his previous career high in games played coming into this season, and obviously he's a first-year rookie. He had some experience last year in the NHL, but nothing to this level. His previous career high in any league prior to this season was 42 games played. Tonight will be his 46th, and it's not like he's just coming into games on occasion and mopping up. He's starting all these games. This is his 44th start of the season. So, imagine if I would have told you in mid-November or at Thanksgiving that Sam Arison, who had probably started maybe 7 games at that point and kind of really sporadically been thrown in there, was going to somehow or other start more than half of the games for the Flyers this season. It's how it's played out because of everything else. Carter Hart's no longer available. He goes on leave. It became Sam Arison's net. And, the Flyers have had to deal with from that standpoint. They had a nice rotation going at that time. Nobody from the backup side of this has stepped in to make it easy where they could feel confident putting somebody else in to take some of that off of Sam Arison. So he's been the guy, and certainly with a guy like Fedotov who just came over, you got to be careful with him. I know everybody's excited that he's going to be this shiny new toy that just came in and is going to be the backup now, but he's had an eventful week coming over. He just got here. He basically participated in an informal skate on Friday and 2 morning skates on Saturday and this morning. So to throw him into a game of this kind of critical mass for the team, it's probably not the way to go. You want to give him a little bit more time to get acclimated. This weekend when they have a back-to-back, when they next play, that'll be the opportunity with a few more practices under his belt. Now you bring him into the picture. But this was always probably going to be Sam Arison's game, and you just hope that he can maybe find another gear as well, because he's a competitor. He's definitely a guy who takes a lot of pride in playing these minutes and being the number one guy. He was that guy. He was a guy like that in Sweden when he played in the professional leagues there. He was the number one for the Phantoms last year. He takes pride in that, but is he hitting a bit of a wall? Certainly from an energy standpoint, it seems like he is, because of the fact that he's just played so much more than he's ever played in his career to this point. So it's definitely catching up with him a little bit.
Talking about Flyers insider Kevin Durso from 97.3 ESPN.com at Kevin_Durso on the Twitter X platform. Flyers taking on the Islanders tonight here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Also, you can listen to the game on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Kevin, obviously part of the narrative tonight also is going to be the return of Jamie Drysdale. How does he change things for the Flyers? Because I think that the average fan, they might not be a diehard Flyers fan, but even they know that Drysdale has played well since coming to the Flyers.
Yeah, and the most important thing for Drysdale is repetition at this point, being involved in games and continuing to try to develop and play more often. And that was what was so disappointing about his injury, was he was getting that. He was playing regularly, and then it looked like it all came to a crashing halt because of the fact that the injury just looked so bad when it happened. So the fact that he's here, there's 7 games to go in the regular season, and he's able to come back is certainly a big deal. Then you factor in, just the depth that the team has now, too. This team has been kind of scraping by defensively for the last several weeks, just trying to find guys who can play. Now you have, at this point, you got Nick Seeler back the last game. You get Drysdale back now. The only guy who's not factoring into this picture right now is Rasmus Ristolainen. So you have all these other players who are up for the long haul at this point. They can't just send these guys back down because they don't have any more recalls left. They're up for the rest of the regular season. So Ronnie Attard, Adam Jennings, they're all still here to practice and be ready to go if something happens. But these are the guys you want to have in for these critical games. You want Nick Seeler and you want Jamie Drysdale. The good news is they're back. The bad news is you can't just expect them to return after missing weeks on end and be completely like they used to be. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. So, hopefully they adapt quickly and they get right back to it. But you have to bear in mind that there may be some rust to shake off as well. It certainly looked that way with Seeler on Saturday, and I'm sure with Drysdale it'll be the same way.
Really quick, you mentioned Ristolainen. When and if he comes back, how does he fit into the big picture?
It's interesting. I'm not really sure how he fits in. I wonder if they would ever go back to the 11-7 rotation that they had before, because that is a way to get a bunch of guys activated. There's not really an easy, is there an easy guy to pull from the lineup defensively? I guess you could say Ristolainen could probably go in for Eric Johnson if they really needed to pick somebody out of that group. But I don't expect Ristolainen back right now. It doesn't seem like he's as close as Sealer and Drysdale were. So this might be as good as it gets for the team for right now. And in that case, you have options with that last spot. I think the first 5 are really solidified. You're going to play Sanheim York. You're going to play Drysdale and Sealer. You're going to play Igor Zamula. Johnson's the guy right now, but it could easily, the next game, be Ronnie Attard again. It could be Adam Ginning again. It could be, don't forget, Mark Stahl is still on the roster too. So it could be any of those guys. And because they have options, they'll have different places to go with it. But right now, you're getting an indication maybe that if this is as healthy as they get, and this is the 6 that they throw out there, this might be your 6 if you were to make the playoffs.
Is it possible that maybe you want to try to stick with the pairings you currently have for as long as possible to try to maybe develop some more continuity for those guys?
Certainly it is. There really is no more continuity that needs to be developed with the Travis Sanheim, Cam York pairing. They've played a ton, so there's nothing to be done there. But certainly you shuffled the other 2 pairings as guys have come back. Like Nick Sealer and Jamie Drysdale are going to play together tonight. So that's a completely new pairing from 2 games ago when both of those guys were unavailable. So now both of them are back. Igor Zamula's playing with Eric Johnson. That's, certainly a pairing that maybe if you can give them some time, you'd like them to develop together a little bit. Because let's face it, before Nick Sealer just came back the last game he played, he was still playing with Sean Walker. That's how far back we got to go for that. And Jamie Drysdale obviously hasn't played in about a month and a half in his own right, so you got to give him some time to kind of get adjusted. Cam York and Travis Sanheim kind of became much more of a solidified pairing after Drysdale went out. Drysdale was playing with Sanheim or York for a little while and kind of trying to see if that worked. So there's definitely combinations they're trying to work out. I do think that they're going to stick with the Sanheim-York pairing going forward, and the rest is going to kind of be, let's see what falls into place, let's see what works. And that's also where I think there's room for flexibility with Eric Johnson. If it doesn't work with Johnson, maybe you see somebody else go in and see what happens, putting Igor Zamula with, say, Ronnie Attard for a change, see if that works. They're definitely going to have some options, and on one hand, you do have a little bit of time to figure it out, but you also don't because these games are like playoff games already, so you really want to have that part figured out and just go out and play your game.
Kevin, you mentioned about Sealer earlier, right? So if he maybe didn't look his best on Saturday because he's still coming back from that injury, is it fair to assume that maybe he'll be better tonight knowing that he's got an extra day under his legs now?
Certainly, and I would hope so as well because that's what this team needs to kind of move forward. You can't just have guys who are so rusty and not playing up to that level. And I didn't think Sealer was necessarily bad on Saturday. The whole team didn't really have it. So It really kind of masked everything for him anyway. He looked all right. And more than anything, I guess the key for him was his mobility looked good. So, considering he was coming off of a foot injury, that helps that his mobility looks good. The other stuff will come with time, making that good first pass out of your own zone to kind of start the rush back up or things of that nature. So if that comes together over the course of the next few games, then that'll work out better. I liked his mobility in that first game, and certainly that can only get better with repetition as well as he continues to play. So hopefully tonight it's a lot better for not just him, but everybody. The whole team needs to be better tonight. And if Sealer can kind of be a leader for that and take, that first game, throw it out and come back and be more of the guy that we saw right before the injury, then that would help as well.
Couple more for Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, before we let him go. Again, Flyers Islanders tonight, Kevin. Mike Gill mentioned earlier on the Sports Bash that if the Flyers don't win tonight, he's selling them as a playoff team. Do you agree with that sentiment, or is there a scenario where the Flyers lose tonight and still make the postseason?
I mean, there's a scenario for it, but you want to win this game because of the implications of the other side of this. If the Islanders win this game in regulation, all of a sudden that 5-point margin between the Flyers and Islanders becomes 3. The Islanders still have 2 games in hand. You don't play for another 3 days, and the Islanders are still going to be playing and making up that ground potentially. So it just makes it more crowded. If you win this game in regulation, regardless of everybody else, you're going to create more distance on the Islanders. The margin goes to 7. The Devils are idle tonight, so they're 6 back now. They would be 8 back after this if you win the game. And the Red Wings are playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. Even if the Detroit Red Wings win and keep the margin at 2 points, they also don't play again until Friday. So you would know going into the next couple of days, you're still going to be in a playoff spot when you next take the ice, regardless of what happens in that game if you just win. Now imagine if you win and Detroit loses, though. Now it's a 4-point margin, and you really have the upper hand. You're really going to have, in this race of teams, 2 out of these 5 teams, if you include the Washington Capitals in this, 2 out of those 5 are making the playoffs. You get a win in regulation tonight, it's massive for your playoff chances. But if you lose this game, especially in regulation, it's a big swing the other direction. And, like the way I kind of look at it is that the Islanders are going to have those 2 games in hand regardless. But if they lose in regulation and get nothing and the margin all of a sudden goes to 7, they have no margin for error once the game's even out. It's still a 3-point deficit, even if they win the 2 in hand. And the Flyers are going to come back and potentially be able to win and keep adding to the point total as well. So the Islanders have no room to slip up at that point. The Flyers would be in the same position if they lose in regulation, because now the gap closes. You may not be at that point, you may not even be in a playoff spot at the end of the night, let alone by the time you play again on Friday. And you have no margin for error at that point. So this is their biggest game of the year, and it would really benefit them if they got back to that rhythm that they were in and played a game, play a game like you did against the Bruins a couple weeks ago, play like you did against Toronto or like Florida at the start of that 10-gamer, where it just looked like you were determined. We're going to find a way to win this game. They need to be that way tonight and find a way to win this game, especially because, on top of it, the Islanders aren't coming in hot either. The Islanders are 2-7-1 in their last 10. So this is an opportunity. The Islanders are on a skid as well. And boy, let me tell you, a win for the Islanders in regulation, if they are able to pull it out, that might wake them up big time if they find themselves all of a sudden in way better position in the playoff picture than they were coming into tonight. And vice versa for the Flyers if they're able to maybe gain some cushion and then get this nice 3-day pause before having to play again.
Kevin, before I let you go, I want to know from you, because when you and I talked the last couple times, we talked about how the back-to-back coming up would probably be the last time you see the backup goaltender in there. So with that being said, if Fedotov is going to play this weekend, would you anticipate it be Friday or Saturday?
It's a tough question, because I honestly, that would involve me getting into the heads of beyond John Tortorella, and certainly it's hard to get into his head. But there really isn't a preference for me, because both of the teams they're playing are out of the picture. It'd be one thing if it was like their back-to-back involved that Ranger game that's coming up, and it's like, okay, you have a clear-cut playoff team, and then the other, you would probably ease Fedotov into this a little bit and, say, okay, if it was the Rangers in Columbus, you would give him Columbus in a heartbeat. I don't know if there's one that's more favorable than the other. I guess the best scenario would be maybe give him the Friday game, because then it opens up the door that Ersson gets one extra day off, plays Saturday. You have some flexibility with what you want to do to start next week. If you want to give, I'm not going to guarantee that the backup gets one more game now that it's a new backup. The last time I think we talked about this scenario, it was how many more games does Felix Sandstrom get?
Right.
Not the case anymore. So because of that, maybe there's another game somewhere in there, and certainly I don't think it's one of the tail end ones here. I don't think it's the Rangers or the last 2 home games against the Devils and the Capitals, if those have really significant meaning. But, if they don't, then that'll definitely open the window for Fedotov to get another game in here or there. But I would keep my eye on, beyond playing Friday or Saturday, where he definitely will get a chance, I would keep my eye on that Tuesday game against Montreal as well, just because that may be another opportunity, depending on how this picture shakes out and how much you feel like you need your, as they've said, their number one in Sam Ersson to go. Then if you really need him to go, then he'll go. But if maybe you feel like there's a little bit of room to get another start in there, I think you want to give Fedotov as much work as possible before the playoffs start, just in case you decide to use him in any way.
He's our Flyers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. Kevin Durso joining us as the Flyers get ready to take on the Islanders tonight. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. You listen live on the game on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Free thanks to First Bank, Seattle City. Kevin, great stuff. We'll check it out on the website and on Twitter at Kevin_Durso for all your coverage.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN. Of course, our Flyers conversation being brought to you by the folks over at Union Forge Vodka. Cheering the Flyers with the best tasting vodka produced right here in the Philadelphia area. It's time to level up your game day ritual with the ultimate power duo, the Philadelphia Flyers and Union Forge Vodka. Grab a Union Forge bottle today. And two things Kevin said there before we hit the break, I want to hit on just to recap. One, about the goaltender, the last point he said, the idea that Fedotov could play multiple times down the stretch is very interesting to me because he mentioned the Montreal game. Is there a part of the Flyers that looks at the Montreal game and says, we already went up to Montreal once and Samuel Ersson lost that game? Is there a scenario where they say, if they can win against the Islanders, win at least 1 out of 2 against Buffalo, Columbus back-to-back, we're on the road still. We played Fedotov in Buffalo. We play Ersson in Columbus. As Durso said, could Fedotov play against Montreal next Tuesday? So now you're giving him 1, 2 extra games, 2, Ersson an extra game off, and 3, telling Ersson, look, we knew you had a rough day against Montreal. We know it wasn't all your fault, but let's let Fedotov go in there and get the shots against Montreal. A little less wear and tear on your starting goaltender, but also giving Montreal a different look in a similar environment. Because remember, all the games moving forward, you're playing at New York twice. You're playing at Montreal twice. You're talking about a 4-week stretch where almost every team that you're playing, you're only playing in one scenario. Now you're playing Montreal and New York back-to-back games, not back-to-back days, back-to-back games, consecutive games, I should say. And you're playing both of those teams on the road. So maybe knowing that, hey, we went to overtime against the Rangers, but we lost to Montreal. Let's give Montreal a different look. That's one thing Kevin Durst talked about. The other thing he talked about is the defenseman pairings. He talked about how the Flyers may value continuity. Let's get guys like Sealer and Drysdale and York and Zamula and Johnson. Let's get all of these guys multiple reps with the same people. Let's get all of these guys more opportunities to get comfortable with each other, not worry about if and when Ristolainen returns. And that way Ristolainen is more of an insurance policy than somebody you're depending on returning. And if Sealer had a rough game on Saturday, and as I asked Kevin Durso, is there a possibility he looks better tonight because he had that one, that first game out of the way returning from injury? He said yes. Well, if you have one bad game, the rest of your games are good. Maybe that is part of the conversation as well. Maybe the Flyers defense as a whole will be better tonight because Drysdale is back, because Sealer has another game under himself, because you're putting players back together who maybe play better together than with other players. And as you heard Kevin say, whether Allard plays again or not, we don't know. But what we do know is you did beat Toronto. You did beat Boston. You did go to overtime with Carolina and the New York Rangers. You already have built up equity to know that you can compete. Don't let Montreal and Chicago losses get under your skin. Because, yes, Montreal is not a good hockey team. They have been a poor hockey team this year. But you went to their house. It's always hard to win on the road. So you have to factor that in. The Blackhawks are a very interesting team because when Connor Bedard was injured, they couldn't win a game. I mean, I got to double check, but I thought they lost like 7 or 8 in a row. Let me pull it up here. Let's see here. When Bedard got injured, they lost, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? They lost 7 in a, actually, they lost, the Blackhawks lost, what is this, 15 out of 16 games, if I'm reading this properly. So, no Bedard out there grossly hurt them for a stretch of games. So if you're without your best player and you can't win a game without your best player, and then when he returns, you still can't win games, it's a tough stretch. So is the fact that the Blackhawks are a bad team or the fact they didn't have Bedard? I think those are two different things. So look, you lost to them with Bedard. You go back to the last time you played them, Bedard was just coming back from injury. So maybe you have to look at it as it was less about the Blackhawks having a 22-47 record, is more as the fact that Bedard was healthy, the team played better. So just some thoughts as we come out of that conversation with our Flyers insider, Kevin Durso, at 97.3 ESPN.com for all of his Flyers coverage. Flyers back at X against the Islanders here on 97.3 ESPN. Back to the text board coming up next, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Flyers Island tonight on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Listen as Tim Saunders and Todd Fedort bring you all the exciting play-by-play action.
Great glove save by Sam Harrison. He takes that out of the top corner. Harrison's biggest save of the game.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Flyers hockey all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia Flyers hockey.
Took the shot. He scores!
97.3 ESPN.
A healthy weight, more energy, and smooth, regular bowel movements. 3 things everyone strives for.
It's me, Chuck Norris. There's one really important thing we don't talk about enough: our health. Achy joints, digestive issues, weight gain, and fatigue. We're told these are normal signs of aging. So working with a team of health experts, we came up with Morning Kick.
Morning Kick is a revolutionary formula combining 10 different supplements in one. Probiotics that help you lose weight, prebiotics for digestion, superfoods for muscles and joints, and several of the most powerful anti-aging supplements on earth. It'll help you feel youthful, energized, focused, and help manage stress.
Anybody can achieve great health regardless of their age.
Go to roundhouseprovisions.com. Use code SUPPORT or text SUPPORT to 511-511 and claim 40% off today.
Every purchase comes with our 90-day money-back guarantee.
Text SUPPORT to 511-511. Morning Kick. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
Now your ideas don't have to wait. Now they have everything they need to come to life. Dell Technologies and Intel are creating technology that loves ideas, loves expanding your business, evolving your passions. We push what technology can do, so great ideas can happen right now. Find out how to bring your ideas to life at Dell.com. Welcome to Now.
Sneezing, coughing, stuffy nose, runny nose, postnasal drip, interrupted sleeping. I was groggy at the end of the day.
Allergies and sinus congestion were making Jana miserable. Then a friend recommended Navage. Navage provides immediate drug-free congestion relief, flushing your nasal passages with refreshing saline and sucking out mucus, germs, and other airborne irritants. Navage helps you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel your best right away.
Navage gave me instant relief. I didn't have to wait 30 minutes. I didn't have to wait an hour, 90 minutes. I didn't have to wait a minute. I ran the rinse and I felt better.
Stop suffering from congestion and start breathing and feeling your best again with Navage. Navage.
I've had people ask me how I find relief, and I tell them Navage immediately. This thing is amazing.
Navage is available at Navage.com or at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid.
Business. It's all the things that keep this world turning. And behind every one of these companies is a partner helping to keep it all moving. It's why the local flower shop and your favorite pizza joint, the startup and the stadium, hospitals and hotels, banks and restaurants nationwide all choose the advanced network, cybersecurity solutions, and round-the-clock trusted partnership from Comcast Business, the company that powers more businesses than anyone else. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
See why Comcast Business powers more small businesses than anyone else. Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 1-year contract. Plus, ask how to get up to an $800 prepaid card with a qualifying gig bundle. Don't wait. Call 1-800-501-6000 or go online to ComcastBusiness.com to switch today. Ends 5/6/24. Restrictions apply. New customers only with 50 megabits per second internet and security edge. EcoBill and autopay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After 12 months, regular rates apply.
Are you ready to smell better naked? I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, the OBGYN creator of Lumi, the whole body deodorant that's clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours on pits, feet, privates, and beyond. It's pH optimized to safely and effectively control odor anywhere you have it, but wish you didn't. Plus, it's proven to work better than a shower with soap alone. Whether you shower twice a day or 3 times a week, Lumi works better. And who doesn't want zero body odor? With over 200,000 5-star reviews, I'm so sure you're going to love it, or you can return it for free.
There's a special offer for listeners. Use code 500 and get 15% off your first purchase with code 500, like the Lumi Starter Pack, Acidified Body Wash, or new Lumi Plus Sweat Control. That's LUMEdeodorant.com, code 500 for 15% off your first purchase. Love it or return it for free. That's LUMEdeodorant.com, code 500 to save 15% today.
To my newborn baby boy, the day you arrived was one of the happiest days of my life. Right up there with the day I bought my RV from that guy on the internet and insured it with Progressive. What a deal. Just know, son, I'll always be here for you. And by here, I mean in the middle of absolutely nowhere. In my RV.
Protect your baby with an RV policy from Progressive. Take as little as 4 minutes to see what you could save at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right. Y'all gotta try that Febreze car. Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La, 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistent scent, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep a smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La, 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 la. Champion exteriors, champion, the one you call first. Voted best of the best in Jersey Shores. For roofing and siding, windows and doors. 24-month financing, no payments, no interest. You're certified GAF elite contractors. Champion Dutch Exteriors.com. Champion Exteriors, champion, the one you call first.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Check back at text board in just a moment. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. By the way, Phillies are underway. The weather did not keep them from playing today. The Phillies versus the Reds. Nothing in the bottom of the first with a runner on first base. They had a chance, the Reds did the score, but they got the man out at home plate. So good job of the Phillies defense for doing their job, not allowing the run to score. And Phillies still in this game. You know, it looks like at least they'll be able to get the game in tonight. Listen, anything but the postpone or reschedule games is always a good thing in my book. So, this weekend was a very frustrating weekend for the Phillies. I know for a lot of you fans out there, I love the passion. I genuinely appreciate it. But I also appreciate the fact when I spend time watching game with fans who are not dense. Because I got to be honest with you guys, there's some of you out there, the things that you guys say, and not necessarily literally you listening to sound of my voice on 97.3 ESPN FM, but there are some of you out there who get on social media and you just say the most ridiculous things. The idea that Rob Thompson needs to be fired after 2 games of a 162 game season is just so dense to me. And the fact that the Phillies won the game yesterday with no Bryce Harper in the lineup, I think only proves that point. You cannot go through an entire baseball season and treat one game like it is a narrative on an entire season. And I'm not going to do that. Look, did I agree with Rob Thompson sticking Zach Wheeler out of the lineup on Friday, out of the game on Friday? No, I didn't. Did I like the idea of the Phillies tonight having Marsh and Schwarber back-to-back in the lineup? No, I don't. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and say the manager is the worst thing out of all time and that he should be fired. you got to have context, all right? Joe Girardi never got this team to a World Series. Rob Thompson was the manager. Rob Thompson got the Phillies to 2 straight National League Championship Series. I'm going to give the guy a little rope. I'm going to give the guy some time to see if he is still the leader of this ball club. This idea that Rob Thompson is the reason why they lost the first 2 games of the season, I think is ridiculous. If you are someone who watches the Phillies at all Friday and Saturday, it is not to blame the Phillies hitters. Bryce Harper was 0 for 6 in the first 2 games of the season. But you're going to blame the manager for why they lost those 2 games? I disagree with that mentality wholly and heartily. You know what? I don't care what anyone says. If you can't blame the players when they don't play well for why a team doesn't win, then you're not a really smart fan. You're dense. It is what it is. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great night, everybody.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local restaurants.
Crossroads Bar and Grill, pushing the boundaries on what bar food should be. Vincenzo's Restaurante, soon to be your favorite spot for a delectable lunch or dinner in Galloway. VincenzoSmithville.com. And Chico & Sons in Northfield, voted #1 sub shop in South Jersey year after year. ChicoandSons.com.
Thank you for supporting these great local restaurants from Town Square Media South Jersey.